That's the cortisol in her blood, that little quick jump you saw. This is Penny Lane, and this is her roadmap to success. So she is, I think, just a really, really nervous dog. The guardian said she's nipped some people and she's had some problems with the other dogs. Sit. Remember, every time you give a treat, always say the command word after the treat goes in the mouth. And I really think she's just so insecure that she's lashing out as a coping or a defense mechanism. So what we want to do is we want to put her in a position to succeed. Exercising her, the dogs that live here are geriatric dogs and they don't need a lot of exercise. But she does get in a little tips with them. So what I'd like the guardian to do, one of them just had a medical procedure. So take that dog out of the rotation for a minute, and the Chihuahua, maybe we just go, and you can even walk them in the house. Just walk them in the leash up and down the hallway for the older dogs if you have to. But what I'd like the guardian to do is start walking her with the other dogs. Now we're doing this, I fitted her up with a martingale. She's kind of all over the place in the walk, but you can kind of shorten up the leash. Don't make sure it's not a tense leash, but a short leash and keep her right next to you. Try to keep the other dog next to her. Come. And then basically walk them together. Dogs get over things by literally moving forward. So I think that that's going to be a nice, powerful way to have them have a bonding experience of a shared experience of something that's positive, where inside everything's kind of a little bit more enhanced. Plus there's territorial pissings over the positions on the couch and different things along those lines that can kick in. You're shaking again. Remember when she's shaking or her tail's tucked or her ears are really far back, you can touch her and let her know I'm here with you. We'll do this one. So you see, she's not comfortable with me touching her. And I'm respecting her by not trying to touch her. Most of us go ahead, I'm going to pet you anyways to show you I'm a good person. Well, if I think you're creepy, the more you touch me, the more creepy I think you're going to be. So instead, we would like all guests to play hard to get where she comes to them like she is there. And so we can offer treats and give your guest a plethora of treats so they smell like the same delicious treats. And so now we create that positive, that's a little bit of a commonality carryover that we can achieve. So basically and you see her tail is very far tucked right now. It almost looks phallic. So basically what we want to do is find ways that we can build up her self-esteem and confidence. Now the guardian might want to go to YouTube. The guardian knows a dog trainer. And as long, I'm sure she only uses positive reinforcement, because for this dog, I don't believe in using negative reinforcement really for any dogs. But for her, it would be debilitating. So go to maybe YouTube and try to figure out some free, there are all these free dog training tips on YouTube. They'll show you how to teach you how to bang your dead or whatever it is. There's simple ones, like you just hold a treat and have the dog on the floor and just go around your back and then go to the other hand and have the dog literally do a circle around you. I call that patrol. Put their paw on their nose, or pound you, or whatever it is. The more tricks and commands we can give her, the more confident she's going to feel, and also the more ways we have to redirect her attention. And that's one of the things we went over in I didn't do the video above, but I have videos of the focus exercise. Now for the focus exercise, and let me know if you want a video, if you forget how to do it, and I can share a video with you. But basically for the focus exercise, when you do it, make sure it's 1 second, 1 second. So 1 second up to your nose as soon as she looks at your face, not necessarily eye contact, any facial contact. So as soon as she looks up at my face, and I go, boom, focus. Now it'd be ideal if she's sitting here. And then basically do this, I usually have about 12 treats. Now she's little, so I take maybe 3 of these treats, put them in quarters, and then immediately reload. Hold it here, don't motion, wait for her to voluntarily look up at you. As soon as she does, raise your nose and go straight to her mouth and say focus. Now first it should be 1 second, 1 second. After you've done all 12 treats and she's pretty much just looking up at you the whole time, then go 1 second, 2 seconds for the second movement only for all 12 treats. And then maybe the next time 3 seconds, and you might get stuck on 2 seconds for a while. If you go from 2 to 3 seconds and at 2.5 seconds she looks away, back up a step and practice it there. You want to get to the point where you can go 1 second, 15 seconds for the second movement within a week. So you should be practicing this 3 or more times a day. Once we get to the point where she can do it, and don't just do it here, do it throughout your house. Dogs don't generalize, they need to do things in different locations. So do it in the kitchen, do it on the floor over there, in the bedroom, all over the place. And eventually you get to the point where you say focus, she stops, and she looks up at you, and you can maintain that 15-second gaze. Now this is beneficial, like I mentioned off camera, for a couple reasons. First of all, if a dog voluntarily gazes at you in the eyes without being lured, it'll release oxytocin and serotonin into the dog's brain, as well as in the human's brain. And when those hormones are being produced, the body shuts off the production of cortisol, which is what I mentioned at the very beginning of this video. If you touch her, she jumps. That's because she has cortisol in her blood. Just like me, if I'm like in line at a haunted house waiting to go in, somebody comes by and taps me on the shoulder, I'm like, ugh. So I'm just jumpy. And it's a physical manifestation. It's not just psychological. So we want to be able to, if you do notice that she seems to be stressed out, that's a wonderful time to practice the focus exercise to help her forget about what she's doing and to stop the production of making it worse. Now, once you can do it anywhere in the house for 15 seconds for the second movement, then I'd like you to go outside to your deck and practice there. Not downstairs, just on the deck. Now, if she, when you first go out there, let her sniff around for a couple minutes. Never compete with the nose, especially for her. We want her using her nose as much as possible. That's a good indicator she feels calm and comfortable. Then we want to sit down and do outside of the deck. And when we go outside, there's a lot of sights and sounds and smells. That's why we let her sniff around first. And then when we start doing it, we go back to 1 second, 1 second. Now this time you might go 1 second for maybe 5 treats, and then try for the 6th treat, 1 second, 2 seconds. If you can maintain, you can go a little bit faster. Keep practicing about 12 treats per practice session until you can get her to focus for 15 seconds on the deck. This usually takes about 2 to 4 days, depending on how often you're practicing. And then the next stage is do it in the yard. Now, when you're doing the yard, again, let her go and sniff around, and when she's comfortable, come back and do it. And don't do it when there's distractions around, inside or outside. So the other dog should not be present. And the last stage is when you're walking her on a walk and there's nobody around. Every once in a while, say focus. When she looks up at you, if she's over here, raise your nose as you're walking and go down and pop in her mouth and say focus. What we want her to do is we want her to practice this behavior without anything around that she needs to focus away from, so that she just has it down in spades. Then if there's another dog, or there's a lawnmower, or a leaf blower, something that she's freaked out at, and you know she's gonna be freaked out, you can tell her focus, and if you catch her with it far enough away, she'll be able to look at you. If it's too close and she's worked up, she's not gonna listen to anything. If she gets what we call above threshold and she's hysterical, just move her away from whatever it is and keep on walking away until sometimes you have to go around a bush or a car or something like that to block her visual acuity. And then try to do some focus exercises. If she won't sit or she won't take the treat, that's her indicator that the stimulus is still too powerful, too strong, I can't disengage. But eventually what we'd like to do is get to the point where you can have a dog walking across the street and you're saying focus and you're at the 15-second focus and she's focusing on the treat as opposed to the other dog or the kids on the skateboards or whatever it is. Now, the other things we can do inside, she sometimes gets into fights with the other dogs. And we didn't really get into, I should have actually probed a little bit more as to why that happens. But I'm going to go over just kind of some warning signs. So typically the very first warning signs a dog gives is they lower their head and they stare. And they freeze. Or they can also breathe really heavy or hold their breath. Sometimes they'll lick their lips or they'll start baring their teeth. Sometimes their ears will go up or really far back. For her far back is probably going to be more insecure. Or getting really stiff. So if we start seeing these body language while she's looking at the other dog and the other dog's nearby, this is a great time to give her a focus exercise or to redirect her into maybe getting off the furniture. So if I want her to get off the furniture, I might just go like that. Off. Remember, anytime the treat goes in the mouth, say the word off. So teaching her to get off of the furniture by just maybe taking a treat and quartering it up when the other dog's aren't here. Come here, sweetheart. Come on, you can come up here. Come on. Well, you don't want to do it. You don't want to cooperate because we're filming. There we go. It's right here. Can she jump over there?
Mm-hmm.
She needs steps. There we go. So I wouldn't have an on because she already goes on. But if you want to train her to go off, just go like that. Off. Do this with like 4 treats, quarter up 1 treat, and just do that 4 times in a row. And do that a couple times a day. After a while, you say off, and she'll automatically get down. And that's an important one we want to have because this is a status position. So if we can condition her to getting down, actually gets your reward off, you missed that one. Remember, you have 3 seconds to correct your reward, so say it right away. So then when if she starts grumbling with the other dogs, we just pull out a treat, or we can just say off. Now first you have to off, throw the treat, and then say the word off afterwards. After you've done this stuff, you can say off as a command, she gets off, then we give her the treat after and say off. So now don't ever do this if there's another dog there and she's really stiff because that one might precipitate a fight. But redirecting her, dogs can only focus on one thing at a time, so if we can redirect her attention away from whatever it is towards something positive, that's a really helpful, beneficial thing. Now normally I would talk about a lot of rules, but we have 3 geriatric dogs in the house and the guardians they're really they're great dogs, and they don't have any problems. And so to upend the whole house, she's a foster dog, is probably not really appropriate. Oh, you okay there, sweetheart? You spooked yourself. I didn't have anything to do with that. Anyways, she free feeds the dogs. I would normally go to a structured feeding, but there are some things we can do. Like I would ask her to ask Penny to sit before we let her out of the house. Is this normal?
No.
I don't know what she's doing.
I don't either.
I find it fascinating as a
What is she doing?
psychologist. So I go to the door and I say, sit once. Penny, sit. And then I would open the door. If she doesn't sit, then I would walk away from the door and I would wait 1 minute. Yeah, I'm only going to say it once. If I say it multiple times, it doesn't mean anything. I'm proving the dog. I have no bark to no bite to my bark. So after 1 minute, I go back to the door and I tell her to sit again. If she doesn't sit, then I walk away for 2 minutes, then for 4 minutes, then for 8 minutes. And eventually, when I say sit and she sits, I open the door. That becomes the reward. And eventually, then she runs out or she wants to go out the door. But going through doors is kind of an excitable time, and it's a confined area, so fights do have a tendency to happen in those areas. That's what it is. She's going after
chasing.
flies. Yes.
Oh, is it? Okay.
It's a fly. She's a
that.
hunter.
Yes.
Huntress. So now one of the things that a lot of people confuse when it comes to dogs, they confuse excited for happy, especially when we have a fearful dog. We think, well, he's excited, so he must be happy, or she. Excited is an unbalanced state of mind, just like any other. So what I would have the guardian do, that's a wonderful little bouncer she's got in her step. Now she's in hunting mode. That bounce of the step is confidence. If you want to see that sort of thing. So if you start seeing that when guests are around, embrace that or cherish that. That's awesome. Well, let me finish up for the door. So keep on saying, double the length of time you walk away until when you go to the door and say sit, she sits, and then you let her out. Then eventually I do it both directions. And eventually she'll just go and sit at the door as her way of saying, I'd like to go out. Now, I'd also like the guardian to avoid petting her unless she earns it. I call this petting with a purpose. So, Penny, this is how I make a dog sit. Sit. And I would lower my hand, let her lick the treat off, and then I would typically tickle her under the chin. We're not always going to give her a treat when we do this. Actually, for her, it wouldn't be bad if she always gets a treat, at least for now. And you see that hunched over, that stiffness, that's that body language I was talking about. And it's hard because she's, if you have guests over, she might just be like that because of the guests, not because of the other dogs. But basically, I call it petting with a purpose. So if the guardian wants to pet her, I'd like the guardian to ask her to sit. And then when she sits, pet her to reward her for sitting. Now, right now, all she knows is sit. And so it's hard to be very confident if you don't really know very many commands. So I'd like the guardian to get into the habit of using passive training to train her. So every time she comes to her on your own, pet her and say the word come. Not when you entice her or give her any incentive to. When she just happens to walk over to you, pet her and say come. Every time she lays down next to you, remember, dogs are the only animal on the planet that can read a human facial expression. So come up with a funny command word, say chill or crash or whatever you want to say. So right there, she just lay down, crash. Now, if I were to reach over to pet her, that would spook her and she would move away, and that would be a negative. That's why I'm showing her self-restraint. The guardian could do that. Now, and if you can't, or if she starts spooking for you, then just say the word crash every time she lays down. What we're trying to do is build that association. Every time I lay down, I hear crash, and then I get a pet or a treat or whatever it is. And after a while, I hear the word crash, and I lay down anticipating getting that reward. So passive training, I like the guardian to use that for come, sit, and down. And so every time she lays down, come up with a command word for that. Every time she comes to you, pet her and say come. And every time she sits, pet her and say sit. And try to pet her under her chin. And say just the command word once. Try to avoid saying good dog. Studies show that dogs listen to the first word that you say. So if you say good sit, the word that's the important thing, we're putting in a position she's not going to listen to. It's taken me about 6 years not to say good dog for everything.
So hard.
Yes, it's very hard. But it really doesn't help. But if you say sit, it doesn't hurt, but it doesn't help. But when she sits, if you pet her and say sit, that does help. So I actually, when the dog knows the command, I say it in 2 stages. I say during the command stage, sit as an order or command. And when she sits, I pet her under her chin and say sit. And also be careful, you don't say sit, sit. Because dogs hear inflection. Say it the same way all the time. I also like the guardian to come up with a list of the official command words. I noticed the guardian, this is a very common thing, said come here, over here, her name, whistle, all these different sounds. It's just much easier for a dog if we only have one word for each command. Now, when she is nice and relaxed, like now, if she was here and you could pet her, this would be a wonderful time to pet her and say settle, or zen, or chill. We end each one of our puppy classes with the same technique. When the dogs are all played out, we have people grab their dog and they just pet him from the base of the neck, the nape of the neck to the base of the tail. In her case, about 1 second strokes. If you pet really fast, I can get actually more aggravated or more worked up. So very slow, and say zen or chill or settle. Or if you're just watching TV and she's nice and relaxed, you reach over and say settle. So now we're putting things in context. So for a month, the only time she hears settle and she's completely relaxed. Then later on, if you have a guest or somebody over and she's worked up and you say settle, now she has a point of reference. Petting with a purpose is asking the dog to do something and petting it for doing it. Passive training is waiting for the dog to voluntarily, organically offer the behavior and petting it. In both capacities, we want to start petting within 3 seconds and saying just the command word. Now, let me see. The guardian has a great job. She gets to work with dogs, and so she goes to work with the guardian. Now, when it's time to go, the dog is kind of in a hallway behind a glass door. And a lot of us, like I said, we confuse excited for happy. We pet the dogs, we're excited. We're going to make them more excited, and that's when they're more apt to make a mistake. I call this light switch on, light switch off. Light switch on is engaging with the dog, talking to the dog, looking at the dog, petting the dog, or opening the door, or whatever it is. Light switch off is disengaging. And again, these need to happen within that 3 second window. And 3 seconds is your maximum. A third of a second should be your goal. So when I will have the guardian maybe put a chair in that hallway on the other side of the glass door. And so when she starts coming down, as soon as she gets excited, just sit down so you're sideways to her. Pull out your phone or do some paperwork, read a magazine or whatever. But watch her out of the corner of your eye. When her energy settles down, then put your stuff to the side and start to get up. When you start to get up, she's going to wiggle, sit back down, and go back to it. Plan ahead. Plan for this to take 15 minutes. And you'll be pleasantly surprised if it only takes 5 minutes. That's great. Then you can start at 5 minutes. But as soon as she shows excitement, we want to stop and turn the light switch off and not say no, not correct, not punish. The thing that got you excited has stopped happening. So I would like the guardian to recreate this in a whole bunch of different situations. I went through a mini version of it at the door. She was really excited to go out the door. So I broke down to answer the door just so we get down there. And I would actually have you go down there, and once you've done the door exercise for the back door, you should be able to say sit. She sits down right away. Then reach for the handle. As soon as she gets up, pull your hand back, sit, then reach, and plan on doing a whole bunch of these. Getting a little bit further, and eventually you can jiggle the handle, and if at any point she gets up, stop, tell her to sit, and then go through it again. I'd like her the guardian to help. These are great ways for the guardian to help her practice self-restraint and self-control, which is not a natural skill set for dogs. But we want to understand that if I want to go on a walk, I have to be calm and balanced. If I want to go out the door, I have to be calm and sitting. If I want to get out the kennel, I have to be calm. Whatever it is. And we're helping her practice that, and that's going to pay off big dividends in other situations. Now for the walk, I showed the guardian how to put on the martingale. I like to I would get a 4-foot straight leash. Make sure you don't use a round leash when you wrap it around her chest, because that will dig into her ribs. We want something that's kind of flat, that's going to distribute the weight evenly. And then basically I keep it a short leash, and I keep the dog next to me. Now this is not teaching the dog to walk with a heel. And this would be something, keeping her next to you would be something you do eventually. Right now, we want her to be able to explore and just have positive vibes in the walk. When we're walking her with another dog, that's when we keep it short. Not tense, but short. So neither dog's in front, neither dog's behind. Otherwise, we create a rivalry situation. Is there anything else we went over there I forgot? I'm sure there was a ton, but anything you can remember? I should go over here.
I don't think so.
Okay. So basically what I'm going to do is I'll do the write-up, and this will be your Roadmap to Success video at the end of your write-up. But if you have questions, please call me or text me. It's very common to need to make little adjustments, and if I don't hear from you, I assume that means everything's going great. You own a business, you understand when there's a problem, people call and complain. If things go great, usually people don't say.
Right.
I get those occasionally, I love those, but I want to make sure that we get her on the right road to success. And sometimes little adjustments are needed. Something stops working, we need to morph it a little bit. I'm available for you for that. Exercise. That's the one last thing I wanted to go over. She really doesn't get it. She gets great exercise at dog daycare. She goes with one of the best dog daycares in the Midwest. And but basically, and that's great. When she gets that, she doesn't need the extra exercise. But I would like to have her practice walking with the dogs, which I talked about a little bit. But there are other ways we can burn energy. If it's like a weekend and she's not going to dog daycare, maybe taking a treat, and I know she's normally not allowed to go down there, but take the screen off and throw it so it bounces there and goes down. And when she licks it off, say the word down, or a fun word, whatever it is, lobby, and then maybe this is penthouse. And so you say, lobby, penthouse. and then count each up down as 1. Maybe she needs, because right now she's getting a good walk, but it's at the end of the day. Now that she's going to daycare, she doesn't need the extra stuff. But it's a weekend or a day, for some reason she doesn't go to daycare, we'd like to sprinkle in 3 to 5 short 5 to 10 minute exercise sessions throughout the day. Some dogs will chase a laser, and if she chases it in a health, she's interested and she chases it, okay. But if she gets really manic, then don't use that. We don't want it to be a negative. And then scent games, Google scent games. Scent games is a wonderful way for her to use her nose, and that redirects her. And it's another great way for her to boost a little self-confidence by having a, doing something that uses her nose. Dogs, like I said earlier, are scent animals. Now, one last little thing about dog body language. Sitting is a way of saying I feel comfortable enough to sit down. I trust you enough to put myself at a slight disadvantage. Laying down is even more of a disadvantage, or saying I really trust you. Laying down with her back to me is a really wonderful sign. If she didn't trust me, she probably wouldn't sit. If she did sit, she would be facing me. She wouldn't lay down. If she did lay down, she'd be looking at me. Usually they lay down like they're in a track stance. They just stand up and start running. She's tucked and her back is to me. I could take advantage of her if I wanted to. And so if she's giving this body language, or she gives this to your guest, then you know you're making progress with your guest. Now for the guests, I'd like to see if you can try to arrange to have 2 new guests to come by every week. Now if you're friends with your neighbors, if you can get neighbors to come by, that's even better, because you don't feel as put out because they're not driving across town, and it can be a very short session. So maybe just ask your neighbor, hey, I got a nice bottle of wine, you want to come over and have a drink of wine or some barbecue or whatever it is. But we really, a lot of times when dogs have behavior problems, we try to shield them away from it, and that's healthy in certain capacities, but we have to help her get over this, especially because she needs a forever home. She is available for adoption, so if you're watching this and you're looking, Little White Dog Rescue is who she's being placed with, which is one of our favorite rescue groups here in the Midwest. And a big exhale like that can also be an indicator that I went to a different energy level. For the other dogs, like I said, if you see a stiffness or things like that, then you want to try to call her away and do a little focus exercise to stop the production of cortisol. You might also want to start a journal. Every time that she gets in a dog fight or a disagreement with the other dogs, sit down after you get them all mellowed out and write down the time, what happened, where they were, what was going on. Maybe there's a guy with a weed eater. Sometimes they're contributing factors. So sometimes if we start journaling these things, I would also put exercise in there and other little things that are noteworthy throughout the day. Then after we keep it for a week or two, we're like, every time she gets in a fight, it's a day that she didn't go to dog daycare, when she's over-exercised and it's this long between meals, or when the kids are coming home from school or whatever it is. We might find a trend or something we can actually work at exercise with. All right, Penny, come. This is Penny Lane, and this is Penny Lane's Roadmap to Success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you need it.